Some people think quiet men are harmless. That's the mistake my son made. I have spent the better part of 40 years pulling wire in crawl spaces and attic heat and February rooftops in central Indiana, where the wind comes off the cornfields and your hands stop cooperating around the second hour. I am 63 years old. I've got bad knees and good credit, and a 1994 Chevy pickup with 180,000 miles on it that I have no plans to replace. People look at a man like me and they see furniture. Safe, settled, easy to take for granted. My son looked at me and saw a bank account that didn't know it was being robbed. He was wrong about that. And right now, standing in my own kitchen, watching through the window above the sink, as he tries his house key for the second time and then a third, his back to me, shoulders going rigid, head tilting the way a man's head tilts when reality isn't cooperating. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest of this. I didn't do what I did out of cruelty. I did it because I finally loved him enough to stop pretending it was fine when it wasn't. Welcome to Dad's harsh revenge. Settle in. The people in these stories had every opportunity to make better choices. They just kept choosing wrong instead. Hit that like button and drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. I think you'll want to stay for all of this. Let me take you back 60 hours, because the front porch is where this ends, not where it starts. My wife Beverly passed 6 years ago. November, which is already the cruelest month in central Indiana, and that particular November was worse than most. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from the first symptom to the funeral. I'll tell you what I told my brother at the graveside. You don't get time to be scared when it moves that fast. You only get time to show up, hold someone's hand, and then one day you're standing in a coat that doesn't fit right, thinking about whether you turned off the stove. Beverly and I had one child, Reed. He was 21 when she passed, a junior at Purdue on a partial scholarship I was supplementing with $800 a month. I didn't stop the checks after the funeral. I told myself he needed stability. I told myself he was grieving. Both of those things were true. What was also true, though I didn't let myself see it for a long time, was that I needed him to need me. I was a man rattling around in a 3-bedroom house with too many quiet evenings and not enough reasons to cook a real dinner. And the only family I had left was a college junior who called on Sundays when he wanted something. I swallowed that part. I told myself it was fine. I have one thing in this house I treat with any kind of reverence. It's a Hamilton 992B railroad pocket watch, made in 1948. My grandfather carried it for 31 years on the Monon Railroad, back when that line still ran through here before they absorbed it into Louisville and Nashville in the 70s. When he retired, they engraved the back plate. I know the words without looking. For the man who keeps the time and holds the line. He gave it to my father. My father gave it to me. I kept it in a small cedar box on my bedroom dresser, beside the lamp and a photograph of Beverly at Table Rock Lake the summer before she got sick. I had plans for that watch. The day Reed found someone serious, stood before me, and showed me he was ready to be the kind of man my grandfather had been, I was going to put that watch in his hands. That was the thing I'd been carrying for 6 years, the one thing I was still holding in trust for him. I didn't look at it every day. Maybe once a week. I'd open the cedar box, hold the Hamilton, listen to the movement tick, and for 30 seconds feel like I was somewhere in the middle of a chain of men who had all tried to do right by the people who came after them. Then I'd put it back, close the box, go downstairs, and make whatever dinner a man makes for himself on a Tuesday. Now let me tell you about Reed, because you need to know who he'd become before you can understand why I finally stopped. After Beverly passed, he came home more. I thought that was grief pulling him close. What it actually was, I understand now, was convenience. He stopped returning to Purdue at the end of that year, taking a break, he said, which became 6 months, which became 2 years, which became him still not going back. I kept paying the $800 a month anyway, retitled it in my head as living support instead of tuition. He found a job at a sporting goods store across town, part-time, 22 hours a week. I told myself he was finding his footing. I told myself grief doesn't run on anyone else's schedule. The apartment. That's its own chapter. He found a 1-bedroom off-state road, $32,875 a month. He couldn't make the deposit. I covered it, called it a loan, never asked for it back. When his car transmission died, I co-signed the new loan. When his insurance lapsed, I added him to my policy. When his credit card interest compounded past the point he could manage, I paid the balance and told him to start fresh. Every time I drew a line in my head, I erased it quietly. Every time I said this was the last time, I made sure he never heard me say it. I cooked most Sundays. He'd show up 40 minutes late, sit at the table scrolling his phone while I talked, give me one-word answers, eat what I made and leave. On the way out, he'd say something like thanks or see you, and I'd say I loved him and he'd say yep, and the door would close and I'd stand in my kitchen for a while before I cleared the dishes. I told myself at least he showed up. I told myself it was enough. The first time I told Reed no, the actual first time in 5 years, was 11 days before I discovered the watch was gone. He called on a Tuesday afternoon. He had a plan. 3 weeks camping in Colorado with his girlfriend Tara and 2 friends from the store. He'd priced out his share down to the dollar, 1,800. He said it like a man reading a grocery list. I listened to the whole pitch. I thought about my retirement account, which is already thinner than I'm comfortable with. I thought about the car loan he hadn't touched in 4 months. I thought about the fact that in 5 years, he had never once called me to ask how I was doing before he asked for something. I said I couldn't do it this time. I told him I meant it. He went quiet, said something I didn't catch, and hung up. Didn't call back that night. Didn't call the next day either. I figured he'd cool off. I figured I'd hear from him in a week when he needed dinner. I had no idea he had already been in my bedroom. It was a Thursday evening. I got home, went upstairs the way I always do, and opened the cedar box on the dresser. My hand reached in and found nothing. I stood there holding the open box, for I don't know how long, just staring at the velvet lining, at the depression where that watch had sat for 19 years. The shape of something missing is its own particular kind of wound. I told myself I must have moved it. I told myself I was tired and wasn't remembering. I checked the dresser drawers, the nightstand, my fireproof lockbox in the closet where I keep the house papers and Beverly's jewelry. I went through every drawer in the room, and with every empty drawer I closed, something inside me went more still. The way water goes still right before it starts to become something else. There is only one other person with a key to this house. I called him. 4 rings. Hey Dad, background noise, wind, a car door shutting. Reed, where's your grandfather's watch? Silence. Then, too quickly, what are you talking about? The Hamilton. From the cedar box on my dresser, it's gone. I heard him shift his breathing, heard the small machinery of a person deciding which version of the truth to try. Dad, look, I didn't... Did you take it? Not a question. He heard the difference. A beat. Then it's just an old watch. It was sitting in a box. You never even wear it. I didn't answer that. I stood in my bedroom in the dark with the empty cedar box in my hand and I waited. He told me. Pawn shop on the east side of town. 2 days ago. Got $275 for it. Needed the money for the Colorado trip since I wouldn't help. I set the phone down on the dresser. I don't own many things, but the truck I know well, and I drove those 11 miles in complete silence. No radio, no talk station. Just the engine and the road and some part of my brain running the same numbers over and over. 31 years my grandfather carried that watch. 22 years my father kept it. 19 years I had it in trust for the son I was going to give it to when he was ready. $275. The shop was called Buckeye Loan and Pawn. Fluorescent lights, security bars on the windows, handwritten price tags curling at the corners. The man behind the counter was named Pete. 50s, reading glasses on a chain, the look of a man who has heard every hard luck story ever told and stopped being surprised by any of them. I walked the display cases slowly, and then I stopped. There it was, sitting between a guitar with a cracked tuning peg and a tray of class rings. Tagged at $450. My grandfather's engraving on the back plate, worn groove on the winding stem where my father's thumb had pressed it 10,000 times. Help you find something? Pete said. That Hamilton pocket watch, I said. I need to know where you got it. He looked at me for a moment. Young guy, couple days ago. Said it was a family piece he needed to move. It is a family piece, I said. My son removed it from my house without permission. I'd like it back. Pete's face did something careful. He pulled out a binder, found the intake sheet, turned it toward me. My son's driver's license, photocopied. His signature. His handwriting on the statement of ownership. Pete leaned on the counter. I can't just hand it over, he said. But I'll tell you this. If you've got documentation on the piece, I'll call the county right now and we do this the right way. I'm not in the business of keeping a man's family property. I had documentation. Original purchase receipt from 1962 because my grandmother kept everything. The railroad's engraving record, a certified appraisal I'd had done 4 years back, $1,400. I told Pete I'd be back in 30 minutes. He nodded. I drove home, got the folder from the lockbox, drove back. The deputy who responded was a woman named Harmon, mid-30s, methodical, the kind of officer who takes notes without being asked and doesn't fill silence with noise. She cross-referenced the serial number against my paperwork, confirmed the engraving, and filled out the evidence hold form right there at the counter. Then she set her pen down. I want to make sure you understand the full picture here, she said. Taking property without consent, signing a false statement of ownership at a licensed dealer, that's criminal theft and receiving charges. Given the appraised value, we're talking about something that could go to the DA's office. That's a felony on a 27-year-old's record. She looked at me steadily. Is that the direction you want to take this? I thought about it longer than she expected. Then I told her I wasn't going to press criminal charges. What I was going to do was something slower and quieter, and I believed considerably more educational. She nodded like she'd seen that particular decision made before and had some respect for it. Pete wrapped the Hamilton in a cloth and set it on the glass. I held it for a moment before I put it in my jacket pocket, over my left side, the same place I'd carried things that mattered when I needed them close. I drove home with the windows cracked, October air coming in clean and cold, cornfields already cut back to stubble in every direction. I thought about Beverly saying Reed had a generous heart, that he just needed someone to show him how to use it right. I thought about how thoroughly I had failed to do that, and in which direction. I got home, went upstairs, put the watch back in the cedar box, exactly where it belonged. Then I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a long time. After that, I went downstairs and made a series of phone calls. I called his landlord. I was still listed as lease cosigner, which I had forgotten and Reed had been counting on, and gave 30 days' notice. I called my insurance agent and removed Reed from my policy effective the 1st. I called the bank. I called the dealership and confirmed the balance on the car loan that was in my name. Then I drove to his apartment, parked in the lot, and took the car. It was registered to me. I had every legal right. I left a note under his door that said, "I found the watch. Come by the house when you're back." He'd left for Colorado the morning after he called me. He had no idea I knew anything. He had 3 weeks of mountains and campfires and thinking he'd gotten away clean. He had no idea what was waiting for him when he came home. Saturday afternoon he knocked. I saw him through the window first. Tanned. New backpack I'd never seen. Sunglasses still on, easy posture, the body language of a man who came through something fine. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who had successfully relocated the cost of something he'd done onto someone who would absorb it without comment. He tried his key. He tried it again, slower this time, then stood back and looked at the door, and I watched the posture change. Not all at once, but like a tide going out, something receding from him. He knocked. I opened the door. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at him, and I let him look at what was in my hand, the Hamilton, flat in my palm, engraving facing up. His face moved through several expressions quickly. "Dad." Smaller voice than I'd heard from him since he was small. "Dad, listen, I was going to tell you." "No, you weren't," I said. "Come sit on the porch." I stepped out and closed the door behind me. His suitcase was already there, packed the night before. Not everything, just enough. A week of clothes, his laptop and charger, the baseball glove from his childhood bedroom. Enough to start with. He sat, I sat, I let the quiet do some of the work. "Your apartment lease is terminated," I said. 30 days. The car is in my driveway. You can settle the loan balance whenever you're in a position to. Your name is off my bank account and my insurance. I kept my voice level because I was level. Nothing performed about it. You're 27 years old. It's past time. Dad, he was gripping the armrests. I know I messed up. I'll pay you back for the watch. Every dollar. You can't pay me back for the watch, I said. That's not how that works. That watch has been in this family since 1948. My grandfather earned it with 31 years of his life. My father carried it. I kept it in trust for you. I was going to put it in your hands on your wedding day. I let that land where it needed to land. You weren't ready for it. You've proved that clearly. He tried the shift I'd seen him run 100 times. The recalibration. Looking for the angle where I became the unreasonable one. You're punishing me because I didn't follow your rules. Because I went on the trip anyway. I'm doing this, I said, because I spent 5 years teaching you that nothing you ever did would cost you a single thing. And I was wrong to do that. That's on me. But I'm done now. I stood up. This is not fair, he said, and his voice had the edge I recognized, the old machinery starting up. You can't just... I can, I said, and I'm sorry it took me this long to figure that out. I went inside, closed the door, turned the deadbolt. The consequences came the way they always come, once someone stops standing in front of them. His landlord held him to the 30 days. He bounced between a friend's couch and a motel on the highway for most of that month. Tara, as it turned out, had been carrying considerably more of their shared life than Reed had ever mentioned to me, and when the financial architecture she'd been quietly subsidizing met the new reality, she was done inside 2 weeks. The sporting goods store cut his hours to the point that the job became something else entirely. His credit card had been the one I'd zeroed out. Without me attached to any of it, the scaffolding just stopped holding. I didn't hear from him for almost a month. When he finally called, he didn't ask for anything. That was the first sign. He just asked if he could come over. I said, all right. He sat at my kitchen table and looked at the surface of it for a long time. Then he said he hadn't understood what the watch actually was. Not the money, the weight of it, what it meant that I'd kept it waiting for him. I told him I believed that, and I told him that was exactly what needed to change. I didn't hand him a list of conditions, didn't give him a speech he could argue with later. I told him the door would be open when he was ready to walk through it differently. That was it. He left. I didn't know when I'd see him next. That evening I made a real dinner. Pork chops the way Beverly used to make them on Fridays, with applesauce and green beans. I ate at the kitchen table, instead of standing at the counter the way I'd been doing for years. Washed the dishes, went upstairs. I opened the cedar box. The Hamilton sat in the same impression it had worn into the velvet over 50 years. I picked it up, wound the stem the same careful 3 turns, and held it to my ear. Still ticking, same as it always had. I put it back, closed the box, turned off the lamp. He took a watch. He thought it was just old metal, just a thing sitting in a drawer with no one using it. What he hadn't understood, what I should have taught him long before it came to this, is that a man's heirlooms are the shape of everything that came before him. The men who earned them, the men who kept them, the weight of what they meant to carry the thing forward. You don't get to convert that into dollars. You don't get to decide it isn't worth protecting just because you need it not to be. I got the watch back. And for the first time in 5 years, I think I might be in the process of getting my son back too. But that part is up to him now. If this story hit home for you, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to Dad's Harsh Revenge. There's more where this came from.